Hello guys and welcome back to the channel. Hope we're all doing okay today, and obviously the World Cup is upon us. On the last video I did predict the top goal scorer, the winner and the dark horses, but obviously I said I will be making a game more of a longer format for the World Cup, which is weird because, and just before we do go into it, I do apologize. I am a little bit bummed up, got a little bit of a cold. I think I'm a little bit run down, which is, like I said, it's weird because usually we're in the summer, it's hot, we're outside, but right now we're all inside. It's getting cold, it's raining, it's dark, and that summarizes how I'm feeling right now. I feel like every single game feels like a friendly that's coming up. England are playing on Monday, which is crazy to think, against Iran, and the World Cup starts on Sunday in a couple of days, and it doesn't really feel like that, does it? Because of maybe the geopolitical aspects of it, as well as the fact that it's in a country that don't really play football, do they? And obviously the World Cup ranking is okay, it's at 50 right now, but ultimately this World Cup seems like one of the most strangest, I'd say, World Cups that we've ever had, especially in my lifetime. But if you haven't already, please can you go on, subscribe to the channel, and you don't need to do the notification bell. I don't really care about that one, but 81% of you as of today aren't subscribed to the channel. Like I say in every video, I'm not too sure whether that's a good or a bad thing, but it's just a stat that I'm going to throw out on the channel. But obviously, I did say the winner. I did predict that Argentina would win it, but here we go. Here are the teams. Argentina, obviously, they're Spain, France, England, Brazil, who are the bookies' favourite. Germany, Belgium, Portugal, Netherlands, Denmark. I think that the chances of winning that through a supercomputer. I just wanted to get graphics up of the better teams in the World Cup. There probably are other teams in that as well, like Uruguay. So obviously now we're going to start with Group A. I don't know whether it's going to be to my left or my right. To be honest with you, I think it will be on this side. I will make sure of that in the edit. Remember that, Dom, tomorrow. We've got the Netherlands, Senegal, the host Qatar, and Ecuador. So obviously, I think the clear favourites in this are obviously the Netherlands, unbeaten in the last 15 games. You've got the likes of Van Dijk, De Jong. You've got Depay in there. They've won 11 of the last 15 games, drawing 4. So they're clearly a team in form and a team that's ready to go on the big stage again. Because they haven't been to the last couple of World Cups and they've been missing out. I think that the massive overhaul in the squad is a fresh reminder of how well they've done in the past couple of years, and I think a team that's ready to fight for the title, because obviously, like I said, they are 6th or 7th favourite according to the bookies. Next up, we got Senegal. Obviously beat Egypt on penalties to make it through to the World Cup, and also beat Egypt on penalties to win the AFCON recently. Feel sorry for Mo Salah and the likes. But obviously you got Sadio Mane, you got Koulibaly, and you got Edouard Mendy in goal. I don't know why I say it like that. And Mendy, Edward Mendy in goal. So a team that's clearly not here to be pushed over. But a team that could potentially be pushed over is Qatar, obviously ranked 50th in the world right now. They beat Japan in the 2019 Asia Cup, which is not something to be said about. I think they're a team that could surprise, but I think ultimately they will be knocked out in the group stage. And finally, we've got Ecuador, a team that could surprise. Like I've said the opposite of Qatar. I think they finished 4th in the CONMEBOL, which is the Copa America, South American qualifications. But they've only lost 1 in the last 14 games. So I think that isn't something to miss in terms of a stat. I think they've got likes of Moises Caicedo's come good for Brighton this season, as well as Pervis Estupinan and Sarmiento, all for Brighton, to be honest with you. I think the scouting did a big overhaul in Ecuador, but a team that could easily make it to the quarterfinals or the semi-finals. Next up, we've got Group B, and according to the average world rankings, this is the hardest group to get out of. You've got the likes of England, Iran, USA, and Wales. And I think this will start with Wales. It's their first World Cup since 1958, beating the likes of Scotland and Ukraine in the playoffs. Obviously, you get the likes of Bale, who can finally say he's made it to a World Cup, and Aaron Ramsey. The 2 key players for Wales. Don't know whether they can make it out of the group or not. I'm not sure if they're a strong enough side. They seem like more of a Championship League One squad at the minute, but a couple of stars like Bale and Ramsey. Next up, we've got USA, obviously finished 3rd in the CONCACAF and really underperformed in the qualifications. Canada and Mexico beating them in that qualification round. But I think that because of that, that's the reason why I put them as my dark horses in the last prediction video. They got the likes of Pulisic, Dest, Aronson, and McKennie all vying for a start and a win in the World Cup. Essentially, I think that they will surprise a lot. I think that people are writing them off a little bit because obviously it's a tough group. Obviously now we'll go on to Iran as well. They've never made it past the group stage. They've got Yakan Bach and Azmoun, their star striker, up front for them. But obviously the off-field goings on at Iran right now, I think that can't be unsaid. I think that the fact that there is so much unrest due to the off-the-field issues might lead them to, have a big 0 on the score at the end of the the group stage. I think that that's what I'm going to predict as well. They finished top of the AFC group, which is the Asian qualification, which is pretty good. But I think the fact that they've never made it past the group stage, as well as the fact it's a difficult group, I don't think they're going to do too well. And obviously, last we've got England, the best ever record for a qualification with plus 36. But then obviously winless in 6 games since then in the Nations League. You've got Kane, Bellingham, Foden, Sterling, all vying for places in the squad, but a team out of form. And I think that if England don't make it to the semi-final, I think Gareth Southgate, his job is under threat. And I think that a lot of England fans already want Southgate out. I think that his defensive-minded tactics, as well as playing a lot of defensive-minded players, with such a raw and a glut of players that we have going forward, it's very contradictory of how we want to play as a nation. And I think that if we don't make it far in this Qatar World Cup, I think that Southgate will lose his job ultimately. And I think that it's a shame because obviously 2018, 2020, we did so well, but recently it hasn't gone well for him. And well, I think that England and USA will make it out this group. But let me know what you guys think as well. Next up, we've got Group C, which is Argentina, Saudi Arabia, Mexico, and Poland with an average World Cup ranking, average ranking of 23.5. Now we'll start with Poland with Robert Lewandowski up front for their key player, as well as Milic, Matty Cash at the back, and Szczesny in goal. They're the players that I've highlighted. I think that obviously they beat Sweden in the playoffs, which is pretty good. Sweden team who, are in transition right now, but, a team that usually makes it to the World Cup. So, and I think that Poland, as well as the team next, which is Mexico, who've made it 7 times in a row past the group stage, as well as the fact that they've, we've got Jimenez up front, Ochoa, the god in net for Mexico. I'm sure he's known as a hero in that country, and I think very much a cult hero in the World Cup. But something that can't be unsaid is they only scored 13 non-penalty goals in 14 qualification matches. Like Wolverhampton a little bit with Jimenez, they do struggle up top, and I think they do ultimately struggle to get a goal that's not a penalty. And I think between them and Poland, that could be the key difference. And I think that could be the difference between Poland going through and Mexico not. Next up, we've got Saudi Arabia. They finished top of the AFC group, beating Japan and Australia, 2 big sides that have made it through to the World Cup the last couple of years, couple of times anyway. But ultimately, I think they aren't good enough to make it past this. I think that they could surprise a few, but I think that ultimately, with Argentina, Mexico, Poland, I think that it's too big of a task for them. And last but not least, we've got Argentina in this group. They won the Copa America in Brazil against Brazil, a team that I said and predicted would be the winners of the World Cup. You got Messi, Martinez at the back, and Martinez up front. Di Maria, the list goes on. The depth is massive. 35 games unbeaten. Didn't finish top of the group, interestingly enough. Drawing 6 out of the games, but still 35 unbeaten. And if they win this World Cup, they will beat Italy. They will beat Italy's record of the longest unbeaten run in an international record, which is insane. I think that nobody would think of that Italy record being broken, but ultimately, with Messi, if he makes it to the final, it will be in his 1,000th game in the World Cup. I think due to storylines, I love a little bit of a storyline in in a football match. I think that with Messi, this in his 1,000th game, it's writing on the wall, it's written in the stars, and I believe that them and Mexico will make it through to the past the group stage. Going off to Group D with an average world ranking of 20.5, we've got France, Australia, Denmark, and Tunisia. An interesting group, really. You wouldn't think that that would have a ranking of 20.5 because France are obviously going to win this league. I think they've finished top of the qualifying group, current holders, which can't be unsaid, but they've only won one of the last 6 games. I think that, like England, they are a team that's slightly out of form, and I think that that is the only negative you could say about France. But if you look at their team, they've got so much depth. If you look at their strikers right now, you've got Benzema, you've got Mbappe, Griezmann, and Giroud all up top that could easily all win them the World Cup for France again. And I think that, like I say, it's too much depth. We spoke about it on the pod yesterday, that even if you look at the back, you got Varane at centre back, you got Saliba, Upamecano, sorry, I really badly pronounced that name. You got Kanate as well at the back, and I'm probably missing a few others. The France team, their depth is insane, and I think they'll obviously ease past this group. Next up, we've got Denmark, and another team that a lot of people have predicted to be their dark horses. Obviously, they won their group, and they've only missed one of the last 6 group stages, meaning that they've made it past to the knockout stages 5 of the last 6 times. You've got the likes of Eriksen that's back in form. You've got Damsgaard at Brentford, and you've got Delaney. I think that, like they did in the Euros, they're going to surprise a lot of teams, and I think that they get to the point where they're becoming such a good team that people aren't surprised by how well they're doing. And I think this World Cup will typify how they're doing. As you can see here, they are on this list, and I think that's probably one of the first times that they've been on these sort of lists. Credit to them, credit to the nation. I think they will make it through with France. But obviously, you've got Australia, won against Peru in the playoffs. Obviously, the goalkeeper making a spectacle and an entertainment value in it, and I think that he's in there now. And I think the fact that they've not won a World Cup match since 2010 says a lot about how they are right now. Obviously, their golden generation was 20 years ago. Can't be unsaid how big their generation was, with likes of Harry Kewell, Lucas Neal, and the likes. I think that right now all you've got is Aaron Moy, not much depth, and I think they ultimately, with Tunisia, who have Hannibal Mejbri and Wabi Kazri, another team that's sort of going through a bit of a transition. They beat Mali in the playoffs, but they've never made it past the group stage, and I think those two teams probably will end up with 1 point because they'll probably draw each other, or it'll be a dead rubber at the end of the group stage. I think that Denmark and France are the clear favourites in that group. In Group B now, we've got an average world ranking of 18.25 with Spain, Costa Rica, Germany, and Japan. There's always a group, isn't there, with a couple of massive European squads in it. So we'll start with Spain, top goal scorer Ferran Torres, only with 4 goals in the qualification, so that could be a negative for them. 19 points out of their 8 games in qualification. However, a strong defence, and you got the likes of Xavi, Pedri, and Ansu Fati, as well as Ferran Torres, and a very young squad as well. You can't, they're going through a transition again. The golden generation of 10 years ago is no more. I think that they are bringing in a lot of youngsters in there, and they could surprise. I think that ultimately the naivety and the how young they are will cost them, and I think that that's what happened in the Euros. I think that it will happen in this as well, and I think obviously you've got Germany in there. No Joachim Low for the first time since 2006. They've won one of the last 6 Nations League games, like France, like England, slightly out of form. A bit of a transition like Spain. They've got the likes of Havertz, Musiala, and Thomas Muller. I think a good mix between the olds and the youngs in there. I think they'll make it further than Spain. I think they'll win this group over Spain, Costa Rica, and Japan. Next up, we've got Japan. Only lost twice in the last 13 games. However, they do play weaker squads in that division in the qualification. It's the 7th time they've made it in a row. Key players such as Tomiyasu and Mitoma at Brighton. I think that they aren't the team that they were a few years ago, and they usually make it past to the knockout stages. I think that the likelihood of this, because of Spain and Germany, I don't think it's likely. And I think another team that's probably going to be knocked out in the group stage, which is Costa Rica. They surprised us, didn't they? When England were in the group, they finished above Uruguay and Italy as well. But they beat New Zealand on a playoff. Not a great New Zealand squad. It was only 1-0. They have the lowest statistical chance of making it past the group stages, according to the supercomputers, with 9%. And I think that holds truth, doesn't it? I don't think they'll beat Spain. I don't think they'll beat Germany. They could struggle against Japan. They could be the whipping boys in that group. Brian Ruiz is still the captain there, which says a lot. And they didn't make it past Canada, Mexico, USA. They finished below those. So I think that this is probably the weakest that Costa Rica have been in the last 10 years. Next, we've got Group F, which has an average world ranking of 19.25, with Belgium, Canada, Morocco, and Croatia. And this one is a very, very equal league. I think this one is not the group of death, but they all seem to be on an even keel. And I think we'll start with Belgium, one of the three sides to make it in the last two quarterfinals, which is huge. Obviously, the decline of the golden generation is near, isn't it? We're sort of on the edge of it. You got the likes of De Bruyne with 9 assists in the qualifications, as well as Lukaku with 11 goals in the in the World Cup tournament, Euro tournaments. There's only Cristiano Ronaldo who's scored more in tournaments over the last 3 tournaments. I said tournaments a lot. You got De Bruyne, like I said, Lukaku, Hazard, Courtois, huge players. A Hazard that's been out of form the last couple of years. Can he surprise us? Can he bring back his form that he had at Chelsea and in 2018? Who knows? Hopefully that he can. And I think that this will be a similar case to the last couple of World Cups. I think that Belgium might get to the quarters of the semis, but I don't think they've got as strong a team as they have over the last few seasons. Next up, we got Canada. The first time since 1986, they won the CONCACAF group over Mexico and USA, which is huge. A real glut of young players coming through right now. The likes of Alphonso Davies and Jonathan David up top for him. This squad is the most unpredictable. That's the word I'm looking for. It's the most unpredictable because not many people know Canada. I'm looking forward to seeing that red and white, a team that we've not seen or I've not seen in my lifetime. And I love this sort of new generation of different teams coming through, like the Denmarks, like the Canada, with the different colours. And it adds to the spectacle of the World Cup, even though I'd said it felt like a bunch of friendlies. But I think that Canada probably will make it through this group stage because obviously Croatia, the runners up in 2018, unbeaten the last 5 Nations League games, but I think they are an aging squad, the likes of Brozovic, Modric, Kramaric. There's not many youngsters coming through. They're all the sort of older generation of players, and I think that ultimately this will cost them in this group stage. I think Canada will surprise us. And last but not least, we've got Morocco, probably won't make it past the group stages. They beat DR Congo in the qualifying playoff. They got Ziyech back, which is huge. However, they've only got the likes of Hakimi, Ilias Chair, who's good at QPR this season, having a real good season there. But they did lose in Qatar to Algeria in the quarterfinal in the Arab Cup. So maybe that has a bit of a psychological barrier for them. I'm not too sure. That it makes sense, doesn't it? But I think ultimately Canada and Belgium are the 2 teams that I'm going to predict make it into the knockouts from this group. Next, we've got Group G with an average world ranking of 20, which makes it easier for my calculations. We've got Brazil, who are the bookies' favourite, Switzerland, Serbia, and Cameroon. Now, this one, I think that Brazil, they are the only team now, because of Italy, to have made it into every single World Cup. The bookies' favourite, like I said, you got the likes of Neymar, Vinicius Jr., Rafinha, Richarlison all up front. Can't be unsaid how huge they are. Whether or not this young team can make it through and win it we'll find out. Essentially, I said Argentina. Brazil finished top of the qualifying groups over them. Again, unbeaten in the qualification rounds, drawing 3 out of their games. Huge team, like as always. And it feels like if a World Cup without Brazil isn't a World Cup, is it? So next up, we've got a team that a lot of people have as the dark horses with Denmark, which is Serbia. They've never qualified from the group stages. However, that comes with a caveat, obviously, because they were Yugoslavia, then it was Serbia and Montenegro. They beat Portugal in the group stages for qualification. Huge, isn't it? With Ronaldo, we'll talk about them in a second. They got Vlahovic, Mitrovic, and Milinkovic Savic, which took me a few times to say. Mitrovic massively informed. Vlahovic has something to prove, doesn't he? Under Fiorentina, he was flying, but under Juve, he's not doing as well. Milinkovic-Savic as well in the midfield, huge player. Switzerland next, who have reached the last 4 major tournament knockout stages, which is one of 3 teams. It's pretty surprising, that, isn't it? I think that the likes of Shaqiri, Xhaka, who's massively in form, Seferovic, who is up top for a huge player as well. I think that Switzerland always bring it in these tournaments, don't they? They don't do too well in maybe qualifying rounds or friendlies against other European sides, but in the major tournaments they do bring it, and they always seem to they beat France in the last Euros, and I think they will surprise a few. But ultimately, I think that Serbia and Brazil out of this group will make it through. But finally, in this group, last but not least, Cameroon, who beat Algeria, a massive team in Africa, in the playoffs. It's the 8th time in the World Cup. You've got the likes of Vincent Aboubakar, Onana in goal, and then a Choupo-Moting up top for him, who always seems to get that big move, doesn't he? Must be a huge player that obviously we've only seen him in England with Stoke. I think that they will struggle in this group. Switzerland are a big team. Serbia are a good flying team right now. And obviously Brazil, who are the bookies' favourites, I'll struggle to see Cameroon getting any points. Prove me wrong, like I say, usually when I say these sort of big points. But I think that Cameroon will struggle in it. Like I said, Serbia and Brazil will make it through in this group. Last but not least, we've got Group H with an average world ranking of 28, making it the second easiest group technically to get through. We've got the likes of Portugal, Uruguay, South Korea, and Ghana in this group. I think that this one, like a group, the Canada group, it's a very even keel. I think Portugal will just make it through this group with the likes of, Ronaldo, the unrest. We're not too sure how well they'll do. They appeared in every single World Cup since 2002. They beat North Macedonia in the playoffs as well as Turkey. The likes of Felix, you got Fernandez, you got Renato Sanchez, Ronaldo, if he fancies turning up properly and being a team player. He's, one of the best players in the world when he's in part of the system, but with United this season, and this whole interview that everyone seems to be speaking about, it's unclear whether he will be the Ronaldo that we all know. And I think that could be the key to Portugal not getting through. But if they do sort it out with Ronaldo before the World Cup, which is days away, then they will get through. And I think there will be one of the favourites to make it through to the semi-final. I don't think they're good enough to win it. But next up, we've got Uruguay, 3rd in the CONMEBOL. They've only lost 1 of the last 9. And their team, when I was looking at it, in the team that was announced, a lot of depth in there. You got Bentancur, Valverde, Nunez, and Suarez. And I think the only thing that will cost Uruguay later in the knockout stages is probably the defence. They've still got an aging defence with the likes of Godin at the back, who's 38 right now. I think that will ultimately cost them. Can they have that flair up top like they did in 2010 and 2014 to make it through to the later stages of the knockout stages? The unpredictability of Suarez and Nunez is a handful, and something that I'm looking forward to seeing against the Portuguese side. And ultimately, a side that I'm going to say next, which I love storylines, and the fact that Uruguay and Ghana, who I'm going to say next, who are the highest world ranking teams, so probably the poorest team in this World Cup, they beat Nigeria in the playoffs. But like I said, the storyline, the arc, if Ghana can beat Uruguay and get their, and Uruguay can finally get their comeuppance and, get closure on this matter. I think that we all know what happened with Suarez, and then obviously Asamoah Gyan missed the penalty. I think that hopefully Ghana will win that game, just for my own heart and for every heart in Africa, essentially, or Ghana, They've got the likes of Inaki Williams, Tariq Lamptey, who's just joined, who's changed nationality from English to Ghanaian, and Thomas Partey, who's huge. If you can keep him fit, if you can keep him fit at Arsenal, he will be key for this Ghana team, and one of the players that they hope keeps the side ticking. I think they will surprise a lot because of how high their ranking is. But with the likes of Korea, Uruguay, and Portugal, it's going to be a big task, and they need to be perfect to make it out of this group. But like I just said, last but not least in this predictions or this guide, South Korea, 50% of all their wins, by the way, South Korea's, came in the 2002 World Cup. 6 wins out of the last 34 World Cup games. They obviously made it past the group stage last time, beating Germany, having Mexico in that group as well, which is a big task, and I think this is a slightly easier group. But I think that Uruguay and Portugal will make it through. You get like this Heung-min Son, who's struggling to get back, Min Jae from Napoli, who's strong at the back, and then you got Hwang Hee-chan, who was at Wolves last season, seems to struggle. So they don't seem to be as strong as they were a few seasons ago, or I keep saying seasons, a few years ago. And I think that Portugal and Uruguay will make it out of this group. So, guys, that is it for the ultimate guide of the World Cup. And obviously, once these games keep ticking over, I will be doing my reviews, previews, maybe predictions on each game of key games in this group stage, and obviously in the knockouts and the semi-finals, finals, etc. Like I say, let me know your predictions below. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and like and comment below. And I will see you very soon. Cheers, guys. Peace.